Dr. Marcus Chun stood at the large window of Kepler's Rest, watching ships from dozens of different worlds dock at the massive space station. The trading post floated in neutral space, far from any single planet's control. Today, it would host the most important meeting in galactic history. Marcus was nervous. As Earth's top expert on alien communication, he had spent 15 years learning how to talk with other species. He knew their languages, their customs, and their fears. That knowledge made him valuable to Earth's government. It also made him a target. The Galactic Peace Summit was supposed to solve growing tensions between the major powers. The Zephyrian hegemony had been expanding aggressively, taking over smaller colonies. Other species were getting worried. Earth had offered to help negotiate, and everyone agreed that Marcus was the right person for the job. Marcus checked his watch. The summit would begin in 2 hours. His security team, led by Captain Torres, had already swept the meeting rooms 3 times. Everything seemed safe. Dr. Chun, Captain Torres approached him. "We need to discuss the updated security protocols." Marcus nodded. He liked Torres. The captain was careful but not paranoid. He understood that diplomacy required some risk-taking. "The Zephyrians arrived an hour ago," Torres continued. "Their delegation is larger than expected. 43 individuals instead of the 20 they reported." "That's not unusual," Marcus replied. "They bring lots of advisors. It's part of their culture. They don't like making decisions without consulting their entire hierarchy." Torres looked unconvinced but didn't argue. "Just stay close to the team during the meetings." Marcus agreed and returned to his preparation. He reviewed his notes on Zephyrian psychology one more time. The reptilian species valued strength above everything else. They saw compromise as weakness. That made them difficult to negotiate with, but not impossible. The Zephyrians had requested this summit after facing several rebellions in their outer colonies. They claimed they wanted peace, but Marcus suspected they were buying time to reorganize their military. Still, any chance for peace was worth taking. 2 hours later, Marcus entered the main conference hall. Representatives from 12 different species filled the room. The Zephyrians sat at one end of the long table, their scaled faces showing no emotion. Their leader, Supreme Commander Vextar, watched Marcus with yellow eyes that never blinked. The first session went well. Each delegation presented their concerns. Marcus translated not just the words, but the meanings behind them. He helped the Aquarian delegate understand that the Zephyrian military movements were defensive, not offensive. He explained to the Zephyrians that the trade restrictions weren't personal attacks, but economic necessities. During the lunch break, Marcus felt optimistic. Progress was slow but real. Maybe they could avoid a war after all. That's when the explosion started. The first blast shook the entire station. Emergency lights flashed red as the artificial gravity flickered. Marcus heard screaming from somewhere down the corridor. "Terrorist attack!" Someone shouted. "Get to the emergency pods!" Chaos filled the conference hall. Delegates ran in different directions. Marcus looked for Captain Torres, but couldn't see him through the crowd. The security team was supposed to escort him to a safe room, but everyone was scattered. "Dr. Chun." A Zephyrian guard appeared beside him. "This way. We have a secure path to the evacuation pods." Marcus hesitated. Something felt wrong. But another explosion rocked the station, and pieces of the ceiling began falling. The Zephyrian grabbed his arm. "Hurry! The station's life support is failing." They ran through corridors filled with smoke. Marcus couldn't see where they were going. The Zephyrian led him through service tunnels he didn't recognize. Other Zephyrian guards joined them along the way. "Where's Captain Torres?" Marcus asked. "Where's my security team?" "Lost in the chaos," the lead guard replied. "We'll get you to safety first, then find them." They reached what looked like an evacuation pod. Marcus climbed inside, expecting to see other refugees. Instead, he found himself surrounded by more Zephian guards. The pod's interior looked wrong. Too military. Too organized. "Wait," Marcus said, but it was too late. The door sealed with a hiss. The pod launched from the station, but it didn't head toward the nearby safety zones. It flew toward a massive Zephyrian warship that hadn't been there during the summit. Marcus realized he had been betrayed. The terrorist attack was fake. The rescue was kidnapping. The Zephyrians had taken him. Why? He asked Commander Vexstar, who appeared on a screen inside the pod. "You are valuable, Dr. Chen," Vexstar said. "You understand humans better than any alien alive. You will help us understand your species' weaknesses. You will help us defeat Earth." "I'll never help you," Marcus replied. Vexstar's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. "We shall see." The pod docked with the warship. Guards escorted Marcus through corridors filled with weapons and soldiers. They brought him to a small room with no windows. It had a bed, a desk, and a chair. Nothing else. "Your new home," one guard said before locking the door. Marcus sat on the bed and tried to think. Earth believed he was dead. The terrorist attack would be blamed on some radical group. No one would look for him on a Zephyrian military ship. He thought about his wife Sarah, waiting for him on Earth. She would mourn him. His colleagues would remember him as a hero who died trying to make peace. They had no idea he was a prisoner, about to be forced to betray everything he believed in. The door opened. Commander Vexstar entered with 2 guards. "Let us begin your education, Dr. Chung," Vexstar said. "Tell me about human military capabilities." "I'm a scientist, not a soldier," Marcus replied. "I don't know anything about military secrets." "Perhaps. But you know how humans think. You know their psychology. That knowledge will help us break their spirit when we attack their worlds." Marcus said nothing. Vexstar nodded to the guards. One of them activated a device that sent electric pain through Marcus's body. He screamed despite himself. "This is just the beginning," Vexstar said. "You will talk eventually." They all do. But as the pain faded, Marcus made a silent promise. He would resist. He would protect Earth's secrets. No matter what they did to him, he would not betray his species. He had no way of knowing that his capture would lead to something far worse than any torture the Zephyrians could imagine. Earth was about to show the galaxy what happened when humans protected their own. Agent Lisa Park crouched behind a ventilation shaft on the Zephyrian military base. She had been hiding on their home world of Drakmer for 6 months, pretending to be a maintenance worker. Her dark hair was dyed green to match the local workers, and synthetic scales covered her arms to help her blend in. Earth's intelligence services had people like Lisa scattered across the galaxy. They called them deep sleepers. Most aliens thought humans were too trusting, too open. They didn't know about the secret agents who watched and listened from the shadows. Lisa had been monitoring Zephyrian communications for weeks. Usually, she found nothing interesting. Trade reports, military schedules, complaints about the food in the barracks. Tonight was different. She heard voices from the command center below. 2 officers were talking about a prisoner. A human prisoner. "The interrogation continues," the first officer said. "The human scientist still refuses to cooperate." "Commander Vexstar grows impatient," the second replied. "Perhaps we should increase the pressure." "No. Vexstar wants him functional. Dead humans tell no secrets." Lisa's blood went cold. A human scientist? There was only one human scientist important enough to kidnap. Dr. Marcus Chun, who supposedly died in the terrorist attack at Kepler's Rest 3 months ago. She activated her recording device and listened carefully. The humans. Knowledge of alien psychology could win us the war, the first officer continued. Once he breaks, we'll understand how humans think, how they fight, how they can be defeated. And if he doesn't break, he will. They always do. Humans are weak when isolated from their pack. Lisa had heard enough. She needed proof, not just recordings. Anyone could fake audio. She needed visual evidence that Marcus was alive. She waited until both officers left, then slipped into the command center. Her training kicked in as she accessed their computer system. Earth's technology was more advanced than most aliens realized. The access code she'd stolen months ago still worked. She found the files on prisoner interrogation. Her heart nearly stopped when she saw the video footage. Dr. Marcus Chen sat in a small cell, his face thin and pale. Electric burn marks covered his arms. The timestamp showed the recording was only hours old. Lisa copied everything she could find. Medical reports, interrogation schedules, even the prison layout. Then she erased all traces of her access and slipped back into the shadows. Getting off Drakmar alive would be nearly impossible. The planet had heavy security, and her cover wouldn't survive close inspection. But this information was too important to lose. She made it to her hidden shuttle, 3 hours before the Zephyrians discovered the security breach. As sirens wailed across the base, Lisa's ship launched toward the edge of the system. Zephyrian fighters chased her, their weapons tearing chunks from her hull. Lisa transmitted everything to Earth using an emergency quantum channel. The message would reach headquarters instantly, even if she didn't survive. As enemy fire crippled her engines, she recorded a final message. Command, this is Agent Park. Dr. Chun is alive. Repeat, Marcus Chun is alive and being tortured on Drakmar. The Zephyrians took him during the fake terrorist attack. Evidence attached. Her ship exploded in a ball of fire, but her message had already crossed the galaxy. On Earth, Director James Walsh of Intelligence Services received the transmission at 3 in the morning. He was a careful man who had seen many false reports over the years. But as he watched the video footage of Marcus in his cell, Walsh felt something he rarely experienced: rage. He called President Jiang immediately. Ma'am, we have a situation. Dr. Chun is alive. President Jiang was quiet for a long moment. Are you certain? Agent Park died getting us this proof. The Zephyrians have been torturing him for months while we mourned his death. Call an emergency cabinet meeting. 1 hour. The cabinet room filled with Earth's most powerful leaders. Secretary of Defense Williams, Admiral Martinez from Space Command, Intelligence Director Walsh, and a dozen others. President Jiang played Agent Park's recordings without comment. The room erupted in angry voices. Some demanded immediate military action. Others wanted diplomatic pressure. A few suggested rescue missions. Admiral Martinez stood up. A voice cut through the noise like a blade. They took one of our people. They let us think he was dead for 3 months. They're torturing him for information about us. She paused, her eyes hard. This isn't a diplomatic problem anymore. What are you suggesting, Admiral? President Jiang asked. Full mobilization. We activate every sleeper agent, every hidden asset, every secret weapon we've been developing for the past 20 years. Secretary Williams looked shocked. That would mean war with the Zephyrians. Maybe war with half the galaxy. No, Admiral Martinez replied. It means showing the galaxy who we really are. President Jiang understood. Earth had been playing a long game since first contact. Every human diplomat, trader, and scientist sent to alien worlds had a secondary mission. They gathered intelligence, identified weaknesses, and prepared for the day when humanity might need to fight for its survival. The aliens thought humans were peaceful explorers who wanted friendship and trade. They were wrong. Humans were apex predators who had learned patience. Admiral Martinez, President Zhang said formally, "You have authorization to implement Operation Prometheus." Admiral Martinez smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Thank you, Madam President. The Zephyrians are about to learn why you don't touch our people." Within hours, coded messages flashed across the galaxy. Human merchants received new orders. Scientists working in alien laboratories suddenly remembered other duties. Diplomats began asking very specific questions about military capabilities and infrastructure. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity had been preparing for war since the day they left Earth. Every handshake had been reconnaissance. Every trade deal had been intelligence gathering. Every friendship had been strategic positioning. The Zephyrians had made one mistake. They thought they could take a human without consequences. They thought Earth's peaceful nature meant weakness. They were about to learn the difference between choosing peace and being capable of war. In his cell on Drakmar, Marcus Chen didn't know that Agent Park had died to save him. He didn't know that Earth was mobilizing every hidden resource to bring him home. All he knew was pain and the daily interrogations that he refused to break under. But somewhere in his heart, he still believed Earth would come for him. He just didn't realize they would burn down half the galaxy to do it. The war was about to begin, and the aliens had no idea what was coming. Captain Sarah Kim looked at her merchant ship's cargo hold and smiled. For 2 years, she had hauled basic supplies between Zephyrian colonies. Her ship, the Peaceful Trader, was registered as a simple cargo vessel. The Zephyrians barely noticed her coming and going. They had no idea her cargo hold was full of military-grade weapons, and her crew were all Earth Special Forces. Sarah received the coded message at 300 hours. Prometheus is active. Execute Phase 1. She had been waiting for this moment since the day she took this assignment. Like hundreds of other merchants scattered across Zephyrian space, Sarah was a wolf in sheep's clothing. "All hands to battle stations," she announced. Her crew moved with perfect efficiency. Fake cargo containers opened to reveal missile launchers. Hidden armor plating slid into position. The harmless merchant ship transformed into a deadly warship. Sarah targeted the Zephyrian supply depot orbiting Ketra Prime. It was a massive station that supplied 12 different military bases. Taking it out would cripple their logistics in the entire sector. The Zephyrians never saw it coming. Sarah's ship appeared on their sensors as the same harmless trader that had visited dozens of times. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. The depot exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Hundreds of supply ships, weapon stockpiles, and maintenance facilities turned to debris in seconds. Sarah was already jumping to her next target before the explosion faded. Across 17 different star systems, the same scene played out. Merchant vessels revealed their true nature and struck at the heart of Zephyrian military power. In one coordinated attack, Earth destroyed supply depots, communication hubs, and fleet staging areas. Admiral Martinez watched the battle reports from her command center on Earth. Each green light on her tactical display represented a successful strike. After months of careful planning, Phase 1 was working perfectly. "Ma'am," her aide reported, "all primary targets have been eliminated. Zephyrian fleet elements are scattered and confused. They're trying to regroup, but their communication network is down." "Good. Begin Phase 2. Phase 2 was different. Where Phase 1 had been surgical strikes against military targets, Phase 2 was total warfare. Earth revealed technologies the galaxy had never seen before. Human ships emerged from hyperspace, using stealth systems that made them nearly invisible. Quantum weapons tore through Zephyrian shields like paper. Most shocking of all were the AI-controlled hunter drones that could track and destroy enemy vessels without any human pilot. The Zephyrian Fourth Fleet was patrolling the border systems when the hunters found them. 50 Zephyrian warships faced what looked like a small human force. The Zephyrians charged forward, confident in their superior numbers. They died without firing a single shot. Human weapons reached out across impossible distances, guided by targeting computers that predicted exactly where each enemy ship would be. The Zephyrian fleet commander had just enough time to send a desperate message before his flagship exploded. Earth forces are not what they seem. They have weapons beyond our understanding. Request immediate. The transmission cut off as his ship became space dust, but Earth wasn't finished. Admiral Martinez had studied human history, particularly the strategies that made Earth's military so effective. The key wasn't just better weapons. It was breaking the enemy's will to fight. Phase 3 began 6 hours later. Human cyber warfare specialists, who had been quietly studying alien computer systems for years, launched their attack. Every major Zephyrian world simultaneously lost power, communications, and life support systems. The attacks were precise and terrifying. Hospitals kept their power, but military bases went dark. Civilian water systems continued working, but weapons factories shut down. The message was clear. Earth could turn off their entire civilization whenever they wanted. On Drakmar, the Zephyrian home world, emergency lights flickered in the government buildings. Commander Vextar stood in his command center, watching reports of destruction pour in from across their empire. How is this possible? He demanded. Earth has no significant military. They're explorers and traders. His intelligence chief looked at the data with growing horror. Sir, our estimates were completely wrong. The humans have been preparing for this war since first contact. Every human ship, every trade mission, every diplomatic visit was gathering intelligence. What are you saying? I'm saying the humans played a game that lasted 20 years. While we thought they were weak and peaceful, they were studying us, learning our weaknesses, positioning their people throughout our territory. Vextar's yellow eyes burned with rage. Then we use our ultimate weapon. Broadcast the human scientists' torture. Show Earth what happens when they attack us. Within hours, every communication channel in the galaxy carried the same horrific video. Dr. Marcus Chen, beaten and barely conscious, sat in his cell while Zephyrian guards shocked him with energy weapons. Vextar appeared on screen beside the torture footage. People of Earth, he announced, cease your attacks immediately or watch your hero suffer. We will kill him slowly unless you surrender. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for Earth's response that it came 12 minutes later. Admiral Martinez herself appeared on every screen in known space. Her face was calm, but her eyes were filled with cold fury. You want to play with torture? She said, let me show you torture. Earth's response was swift and merciless. Human ships began targeting civilian infrastructure across Zephyrian space. Not to kill, but to terrorize. Power grids failed on dozens of worlds, plunging entire cities into darkness. Water treatment plants shut down. Air recycling systems in space colonies flickered on and off. The humans weren't destroying the infrastructure. They were demonstrating complete control over it. Billions of Zephyrians suddenly realized their lives depended on human mercy. Every minute you hurt Dr. Chun, Admiral Martinez continued, another world loses power. Every day he suffers, another planet loses life support. You wanted to see human ruthlessness? You're about to experience it. The psychological impact was devastating. The Zephyrians had based their entire culture on strength and dominance. Suddenly they were helpless, dependent on the mercy of the species they had considered weak. Panic spread across their empire. Civilian populations demanded their leaders surrender. Military officers began questioning orders. Some outer colonies surrendered to human forces without a fight, but Earth wasn't finished. In a move that shocked the entire galaxy, human fleets began targeting any species that traded with the Zephyrians. The Corvan Republic found their shipping lanes under attack. The Altari Confederation discovered their communication networks compromised. "This is Earth's final warning," Admiral Martinez broadcast. "Any species that aids the Zephyrians will be considered an enemy. Any government that provides them supplies will share their fate." Within days, the Zephyrians found themselves completely isolated. Former allies cut all contact. Trade partners canceled agreements. Even their oldest friends refused to answer their calls. Earth had done more than start a war. They had declared themselves the new apex species in the galaxy and demonstrated the power to enforce that claim. In his cell, Marcus Chen had no idea that his capture had triggered the most devastating military campaign in galactic history. All he knew was that his guards seemed increasingly nervous. They whispered among themselves in their own language, and the daily torture sessions had stopped. Something had changed. Something that made even the Zephyrians afraid. He just didn't know that Earth was burning down the galaxy to bring him home. Ambassador Kellen of the Galactic Council stared at the reports flooding his desk. In just 2 weeks, human forces had destroyed the infrastructure of 43 different worlds. Trade routes that had existed for centuries were now graveyards of burning ships. The galaxy's economy was collapsing. "This has to stop," Kellen announced to the emergency session. Representatives from 37 species filled the council chamber, all demanding action against Earth's excessive response. "One human scientist does not justify this level of destruction," declared the Altari representative. "Earth must be stopped before they destroy galactic civilization." Murmurs of agreement echoed around the chamber. The Corvan delegate stood up, his blue skin flushed with anger. "My people's shipping fleet has been reduced to scrap metal. Entire families have lost their livelihoods because Earth decided to throw a tantrum over one kidnapped individual." Ambassador Kellen activated the main screen. Earth's response appeared immediately. It wasn't Admiral Martinez this time. It was President Jiang herself, speaking from the Oval Office. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice calm and polite. "You seem to have misunderstood our position. This is not about one individual. This is about the principle that human lives are not bargaining chips." The president's image looked directly at the camera, as if she could see every delegate in the chamber. "For 20 years, Earth has offered friendship, trade, and cooperation to every species we've encountered. We shared our technology, our knowledge, and our resources freely. In return, you saw kindness as weakness." President Jiang's expression hardened. "You allowed the Zephyrians to kidnap, torture, and humiliate one of our most respected citizens. Worse, you expected us to accept it quietly, to negotiate, to compromise, to prove once again that humans can be pushed around without consequences." The chamber fell silent. "Let me be perfectly clear. We offered you peace. You chose war. Now you'll learn why human peace was always a choice, never an inability." The transmission ended, leaving the delegates staring at a blank screen. Within hours of the council meeting, Earth's response escalated dramatically. Human fleets began attacking any species that had expressed a support for a galactic intervention against Earth. The Altari Confederation woke up to find their home fleet destroyed in orbit. The Corvan Republic discovered that every single one of their military shipyards had been reduced to molten metal. But Earth's most shocking move was revealing their true technological capabilities. For the first time, alien species saw human weapons that bent the laws of physics as they understood them. Captain Rexnar of the Corvan Defense Force watched in horror as human ships materialized inside his. formation without using any detectable form of faster-than-light travel. They simply appeared, fired, and vanished before his weapons could lock onto them. How are they doing this? Rexnar demanded. His science officer's voice shook. Sir, our sensors show quantum fluctuations consistent with dimensional folding. The humans aren't traveling through space. They're stepping around it. Rexnar had fought in 3 different wars over his 50-year career. He had never seen technology like this. The humans were fighting with weapons that belonged in science fiction, not reality. The quantum fold drives were just the beginning. Human ships deployed swarms of self-replicating combat drones that could reproduce themselves using raw materials from destroyed enemy vessels. Each destroyed alien ship became the raw material for 10 more human weapons. The psychological impact was devastating. Enemy fleets found themselves fighting an opponent that grew stronger with every victory. Destroying human drones only provided materials for more drones. The humans had created a military force that fed on conflict itself. On the planet Altara Prime, civilian riots erupted as the population demanded their government surrender to Earth. Similar uprisings began on dozens of other worlds. The message from the streets was clear. No political goal was worth fighting an enemy that could turn off their lights and water at will. The Corvan Republic became the first major power to break ranks with the Galactic Council. Prime Minister Veltar sent a desperate message to Earth offering complete surrender in exchange for mercy. Admiral Martinez accepted immediately, but with conditions. The Corvans would provide Earth with complete intelligence on every other species' military capabilities. They would allow human bases on their worlds. Most importantly, they would actively assist Earth's campaign against any species still opposing them. The Corvans agreed to everything. With Corvan assistance, Earth's military machine became unstoppable. The Corvans provided detailed maps of enemy positions, weapon specifications, and political weaknesses. Their own fleet, what remained of it, joined human forces in attacking former allies. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. Species after species chose collaboration over destruction. The Aquarians surrendered when human weapons boiled away their ocean cities' protective barriers. The Crystalline Collective submitted. After watching human mining drones consume an entire asteroid belt in hours, but Earth saved the most devastating demonstration for the species still supporting the Zephyrians. The Montari Empire, a proud warrior culture that had never lost a war, declared they would fight humanity to the last soldier. Earth's response was to make an example of them. Human fleets surrounded the Montari home system and began the most terrifying display of technological supremacy the galaxy had ever witnessed. Using massive stellar engineering equipment that had somehow remained hidden for decades, Earth began to move the Montari sun. The process took 3 days. Slowly, inexorably, the Montari star began shifting position. Gravity fields that had remained stable for billions of years changed. Planetary orbits altered. The entire Montari civilization faced extinction not from weapons, but from having their sun relocated. The psychological impact was beyond anything any species could have imagined. Moving a star was the power of gods, not mortals. The humans had just announced that they controlled forces that could reshape entire solar systems. The Montari Empire surrendered on the 3rd day, begging Earth to return their sun to its proper position. Earth complied, but the message was received throughout the galaxy. Humanity could literally move stars. No force in known space could match that kind of power. As news of the Montari demonstration spread, the remaining resistance collapsed. The few species still supporting the Zephyrians switched sides immediately. Even the Galactic Council formally apologized to Earth and requested permission to exist. Admiral Martinez stood in her command center. watching tactical displays that showed human control spreading across the galaxy like a virus. In less than a month, Earth had gone from being a minor diplomatic player to the undisputed master of known space. "Ma'am," her aide reported, "we're receiving surrender offers from the last 17 holdout governments. The galaxy appears to be ours." Admiral Martinez nodded, but her expression remained grim. "And Dr. Chun?" "Still imprisoned on Drakmar. The Zephyrians are too terrified to harm him, but they also haven't released him. They seem paralyzed by fear." Then we moved to the final phase. Earth had conquered the galaxy in a month. Now they would teach it the ultimate lesson about the price of touching human citizens. The Zephyrians were about to learn that victory and mercy were two very different things. In his cell, Marcus Chen noticed his guards no longer looked at him with contempt. They looked at him with terror. Something fundamental had changed in the galaxy, and somehow it was connected to him. He still didn't know that Earth had burned down galactic civilization to bring him home. But soon, he would witness the final act of humanity's terrible vengeance. Commander Vextar's hand shook as he watched the final reports from across his dying empire. The Zephyrian hegemony, which had controlled over 200 worlds just 6 months ago, now held only their home planet of Drakmar. Everything else was either destroyed or under human control. His military advisors sat around the war room table in stunned silence. None of them had expected this outcome when they kidnapped the human scientist. They thought they were taking a valuable prisoner. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping monster. "Sir," his intelligence chief reported, "the humans have begun orbital bombardment of our outer colonies. They're not targeting population centers. They're systematically destroying every piece of infrastructure larger than a house." Vextar watched the video feeds from space. Human ships hung in orbit around Zephyrian worlds like birds of prey. Their weapons reached down from space with surgical precision, turning factories into craters, melting spaceports into glass, and reducing military bases to ash. But they left the civilians alone. The message was clear: surrender or watch your civilization return to the Stone Age. "What about our allies?" Vextar asked desperately. "Gone. The Corvan Republic is actively helping the humans hunt down our remaining fleet elements. The other species won't even answer our communications." Vextar felt the weight of complete defeat. In his arrogance, he had started a war he couldn't win against an enemy he hadn't understood. The humans weren't the peaceful traders they pretended to be. They were predators who had spent decades preparing for exactly this kind of conflict. "Sir," another aide reported, "incoming transmission from the human fleet." "It's Admiral Martinez." The screen activated, showing the human military leader. She looked tired but determined. Behind her, Vextar could see the bridge of what was obviously a massive warship. "Commander Vextar," she began without any greeting, "you have 1 hour to release Dr. Chun and surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will begin the complete sterilization of Drakmar." "You wouldn't dare attack our homeworld," Vextar replied. Though his voice lacked conviction, Admiral Martinez's expression didn't change. "We moved the Montari sun because they annoyed us. What do you think we'll do to the people who tortured our citizen for 6 months?" The transmission ended, leaving Vextar alone with his thoughts. He looked around the room at his officers. These were the best minds his species had produced, and they had all supported the decision to take the human. Now they could only wait for extinction. "Sir," his aide whispered, "perhaps we should consider surrender." Vextar closed his eyes. His entire life had been dedicated to Zephyrian strength and dominance. Surrender meant the end of everything his species represented. But the alternative was the end of his species entirely. "Bring me the human," he ordered quietly. Marcus Chum had spent 6 months in the Zephyrian prison. 6 months of daily interrogations, torture, and psychological warfare designed to break his spirit. But somehow he had endured. Even when they showed him video of his supposed death being broadcast across the galaxy, he refused to give them useful information. The irony was that Marcus actually knew more military secrets than he had initially claimed. As Earth's top xenobiologist, he had been briefed on humanity's real capabilities. He knew about the hidden weapons, the sleeper agents, and the long-term strategy to dominate the galaxy if necessary. But Marcus was smarter than his captors realized. Instead of staying silent, he had fed them carefully crafted lies. Every piece of information he gave them was designed to mislead. He told them human ships were slow when they were actually faster than anything in space. He claimed human weapons were primitive when they could move stars. Most importantly, he convinced them that Earth had no significant military assets outside their home system. The Zephyrians had planned their strategy, based entirely on Marcus's false intelligence. They thought they were fighting a species with limited technology and no preparation for war. That miscalculation had cost them their empire. When the guards brought Marcus to Commander Vexstar's office, the Zephyrian leader looked like a broken man. His scales had lost their natural luster, and his yellow eyes held no trace of their former arrogance. "Dr. Chun," Vexstar said quietly, "I am prepared to offer your release in exchange for Earth calling off their attacks." Marcus stared at his captor for a long moment. "You really don't understand, do you?" "Understand what?" "Earth isn't doing this to get me back. They're doing this to teach you a lesson. My rescue is just a bonus." Vexstar's confusion was obvious. Marcus almost felt sorry for him. "You made a mistake that no species in galactic history has ever made," Marcus continued. "You took a human and held them against their will. You tortured one of us while the rest watched. You broke the one rule that humanity considers sacred. You don't touch our people. But you're just one individual," Vexstar protested. "Surely your species wouldn't destroy the galaxy for one person." Marcus smiled for the first time in months. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "You still don't get it. This isn't about me anymore. This is about Earth establishing the new rules of galactic civilization. Rule number 1. Human lives are not negotiable. Rule number 2. Any species that violates rule number 1 ceases to exist." An hour later, Marcus Chen walked out of his cell for the last time. Zephyrian guards escorted him to a transport that carried him to a human fleet waiting in orbit. As his ship left the planet's atmosphere, Marcus looked back at Drakmer and felt no satisfaction. Only sadness for the billions of beings whose leaders had made such a terrible mistake. Admiral Martinez met Marcus personally when he arrived at the command ship. After months of torture, he was thin and scarred, but his mind was sharp. "Dr. Chun," she said formally, "on behalf of Earth and all humanity, I apologize for what you endured. Your sacrifice won't be forgotten." Marcus looked around at the bridge crew, all of them watching him with respect and concern. "Admiral, what exactly happened while I was gone?" "We conquered the galaxy." The simple statement hung in the air. Marcus had expected a rescue mission, maybe some diplomatic pressure. He hadn't expected Earth to reveal itself as the galaxy's new supreme power. All of it? All of it. 47 major species over 3,000 worlds, completely under human control. The Zephyrian Empire has been reduced to their home world, which will probably give to refugees from the worlds they destroyed. Marcus sat down heavily. How many died? Surprisingly few. Once we demonstrated our capabilities, most species surrendered rather than fight. The ones who resisted found their infrastructure disabled, not their populations exterminated. We're conquerors, not genocidal maniacs. And the Zephyrians? Admiral Martinez's expression hardened. They'll survive, but they'll never threaten anyone again. No military, no spaceflight capability, no access to advanced technology. They can farm and think about what they did wrong. 6 months later, Marcus Chun stood before the newly formed Galactic Assembly. The old council had been dissolved and replaced with a human-controlled system. Representatives from every species sat in carefully assigned seats, listening as Marcus delivered his first speech as Earth's new Minister of Alien Affairs. "My friends," he began, addressing beings who had once considered him just another weak human. "We gathered today to establish the new principles of galactic civilization. These principles are simple: respect, cooperation, and the absolute sanctity of sentient life." The delegates listened with rapt attention. They had no choice. For 20 years, humanity offered these same principles voluntarily. We shared our knowledge, opened our markets, and treated every species as equals. Some of you accepted that friendship. Others saw it as weakness to exploit. Marcus paused, letting his words sink in. The Zephyrians decided to test human resolve by taking one of our people. They learned that human kindness is a choice, not an inability. They discovered that we are perfectly capable of war when peaceful solutions are rejected. The Zephyrian representative, one of only 3 allowed off their homeworld, sat with his head bowed in shame. "But we are not here to dwell on past mistakes," Marcus continued. "We are here to build a better future. Under human leadership, this galaxy will enjoy unprecedented peace and prosperity. Trade routes will be protected. Conflicts will be resolved through negotiation. Scientific knowledge will be shared freely. And if some species resist this new order?" asked the Altari delegate nervously. Marcus smiled the same cold smile he had given Commander Bexstar months earlier. "Then they will join the Zephyrians in learning what happens when you mistake human mercy for weakness." The message was clear to everyone in the chamber. Earth had established itself as the galaxy's protector and judge. They would maintain peace through strength, cooperation through demonstration of what happened to those who chose conflict. As Marcus concluded his speech and the delegates filed out to begin their new lives under human oversight, he reflected on the strange path that had brought him here. 6 months of torture had led to humanity revealing its true nature and taking control of galactic civilization. He thought about Agent Park, who had died to bring word of his capture. He thought about Admiral Martinez, who had burned down empires to bring him home. Most of all, he thought about what humanity had become. They were no longer the friendly explorers who had left Earth decades ago.